Good afternoon, good morning, depending on where you are in the world. And welcome to this live stream right here in the Make More Placements community on Facebook. Today, we're going to be talking about the 4 critical pillars of fast growth in your recruitment or search business. We're going to get started in just a few seconds. It's going to allow a few people to join. Before we start, if you're listening live, just write the word live in the comments so we know everything is working okay. You can see and hear us clearly.
Hi folks, good morning, good afternoon and welcome.
If you're joining us on the replay, just write replay in the comments as well to help boost engagement. Again, we're going to get started in about 30 seconds. We're going to be talking about the 4 critical pillars of fast growth in your recruitment or search business. Just let us know you can see and hear us okay by giving us a thumbs up in the comments. Awesome. Hi, Jem. Perfect. Good stuff. So it looks like it's working. Again, if it's your first time hearing a live stream from us, we go live every Wednesday, 3 p.m. UK time, to talk about something to do with revenue and profit growth in your recruitment or search business. So it could be marketing, could be sales, could be delivery. But we come here every Wednesday to give you a live show. And today we're going to talk about 4 critical pillars of fast growth in your recruitment and search business. Been sort of excited to do this one because, I think that's what, everyone that comes to us, everyone that joins our groups, joins our trainings, that's what they want, right? How do I go from where I am now in my business to, as quickly as possible, increasing my revenue and, more importantly, increasing profits? And there's a few sort of key things, systems that you need to plug into your business. We have our own philosophies on how those systems should work and should be developed, which we'll touch on today. But I think from the people that we work with personally, people that we've seen in the industry, the ones who achieve fast growth have these 4 things working for them in their favor. I think, Terry, I'm sure you'd agree, without these systems, you can still do well. But I think without them, you get to a certain level when you hit a sort of a wall or a plateau, and you struggle to get past a certain level. Terry, would you go along with that?
Definitely. We talk to recruitment and search business owners every day of the week, 5 days a week. Probably between us and the business, we probably talk to 10 or so a day, every day. And one of the questions we ask them is, if we could help you overcome the #1 challenge, what would it be? And it's going to be around sales. And the question they often say is, I'd like to increase my sales. The next question I always ask is, great, let's look at what you're doing now. So we then ask, how many conversations do you have with hiring managers in a month? How many conversations do you have with new hiring managers who could possibly give you business in that particular month? Do you know, Drew, the average number is about 4 or 5? That's a big problem, because it is a fact. The more conversations you have with decision makers in your market, the more opportunities you're going to have to get business. And more opportunity to get business means ultimately you're going to get sales. Fact of the matter is that not everybody you talk to is going to give you business. Now, some of you might argue that your conversion rate is 60, 70%. Great. But even, if you're only speaking to 4 or 5 people a month, you're really challenged there. Imagine what it would mean to you if you were having modestly 15, 20 telephone conversations or meetings with hiring managers who are actually in the market for what you do. Just think about it for a minute. What would that do to you? What would that do for your sales? How would you feel if every month? But the challenge is most people haven't. So one of the things that you need is a predictable way of increasing the number of conversations you're having with hiring managers on the regular and consistent basis. A predictable method of having 15, 20 meetings with hiring managers who are in the market for what you do every month. Again, imagine what that would mean to your business and how you'd feel about that. Drew, thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's it's fairly basic, and it's a fairly simplistic way of looking at it. Like, we always say, the more conversations you have, the more opportunities you have to pitch your services, the more sales you make. And it's obvious. I don't think anyone can really argue with that. It's simple. But I think from my experience, what happens is you know, the few problems around this. One, I think people don't really measure that metric. You know, from month to month, they're not really paying attention to, you know, how many conversations they're having, how many proposals are sent out, and how much, you know, they sort of look at the revenue numbers, how much business they're winning, but not looking at what's driving that. How many conversations they have with new decision makers, hiring managers in that given month. And I think the other problem is, even if they are aware of those numbers, a lot of businesses don't have a way of increasing that. So, you know, let's say January, they speak to 20 hiring managers, they do 20 pitches, or each consultant in a business does 20 pitches. How do they get to 30 next month? How do they get to 40 next month, the month after? So, and I think unless you have that, what happens is, again, you can do really, really well, but you always hit this level where you like the growth stops, because it's an important thing you need to increase, right? If you have, you know, we call it, with our clients, we call it an abundant appointment system. You know, how can I, month after month, increase the number of conversations I'm having? And when we look to grow a business, that's the first thing we look at. We look at, you know, every fee earner in the business, what are they doing to create conversations, create these opportunities, and where can we get an increase? Where can we improve that? And I think, you know, let's say that it doesn't really matter how you create these opportunities, how you know, what business development looks like in your company, whether it's cold calling, you know, NPCs, whatever it is for you. If you can't increase that next month without it really having an impact on the other areas of your business, and you'll always be at you know, the same level, and you're sort of relying on I guess, you know, we'll talk more about this a bit later, but relying on the ambitions of your clients to grow rather than your own ambitions. And we talk about that quite a lot, but we'll dig into that a bit later. So number one is, you know, number one system is increasing the number of conversations that you're having with decision makers and hiring managers in your market. Number two is increase the number of conversations you're able to convert into a client. Terry, can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so if you're having, let's say, 4 meetings every month with a hiring manager, and let's say your conversion rate's 1 in 20, sorry, 1 in 25, it's 25%, or 1 in 4. Let's say it's 2 in 4. One of the things that you want to be doing is optimizing that and improving that conversion. And there's a saying that I'm sure you've heard, and Drew touched on it just now, you know, if you're not measuring things, then you've got problems. So there's a famous saying by the famous consultant, if you don't measure it, you cannot manage it. Let me repeat that. If you're not measuring things, you can't manage it. If you don't know how many business development meetings you have in a month with new hiring managers, you can't manage that. If you don't know what your conversion rate is, and often when we talk to recruiters, I think recruiters by nature are quite optimistic, and they say, "Oh, crikey, Terry, if I get in front of 4 decision makers, I'd expect to get, you know, 2 or 3 pieces of business." And the question we always get is, have you actually managed that? Do you know that for sure? Because here's something worth considering. If you knew those numbers, if you knew, example, for every 10 business meetings you had a month, every single month, 4 of them converted into fee-paying clients, and you could convert 40% of them, you know exactly what you need to do now to double your sales, because you can increase the number of sales and also improve. If you were to improve on the conversion and the sales, that's going to have a dramatic impact on your business. But as Drew rightly said, most recruitment and search runners that we speak to, they don't know these exact numbers. And these are really important numbers. How many meetings are you having, and what's your conversion rate? Honestly, hand on heart, what is your conversion rate? Because if you can improve that, you're going to improve your business so much so, more than you probably going to imagine, if you can do that. Would you say that's a fair point, Drew?
Yeah, and I think just to add, you know, this isn't just about your conversion rate or how many you're able to convert into a client. It's also about getting, you know, the fee that you deserve as well, the right fee. I think, again, one of the things that slows down growth is, yeah, you're winning business, but you know, you're being underpaid for the work you're doing. And I think as a recruiter, the job that you do, you know, think about the impact that can have on the candidate, the hiring manager, the organization as a whole. We deserve to be, you know, paid for that, paid accordingly. And I think there's a lot of recruiters who are out there winning business, but they know that they're getting paid less than they deserve, because they haven't quite sort of grasped or figured out how to, you know, not only convert the business into a client, but also get it at the right fee, and also the right terms as well. The payment terms, you know, our preference is always to go for you know, if you know, on perm recruitment, definitely, you know, exclusivity with a cancellation or retained, because I think when you get it on that, you significantly increase your chances of being paid. And that's what, you know, that's, again, talking about revenue growth and profit growth, that's what it really comes down to. One, how many conversations we can have, we spoke about, but two, you know, if we can turn more of those conversations into an invoice, paying clients for the right thing on the right terms, that's going to really help the speed of growth in your company or your department.
Yeah, and ultimately, at the end of the day, you're in business to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. That's what you're in business for. And if you're talking to a hiring manager and the hiring manager says, look, can you do something with a fee? Can you reduce this? Can you reduce this fee? Again, sadly, what the majority of recruiters do is they go, yeah, I can reduce the fee. But here's the problem with that: you're not actually negotiating when you're doing that. So what we'd encourage you to do is to negotiate. Look, if you want a reduction in the fee, what part of the service that we offer don't you actually want? Or if I reduce my fees, do you agree to pay the terms within 7 days, or whatever it pays? Sorry, pay the invoice within 7 days. But you've got to negotiate a win-win situation. So it's win for the client and win for you. Anything else, if it's win-lose, it's not a good deal. And if it's a win-lose for you, that's a lousy deal. And I do your utmost to avoid that in any way that you can. So yeah, as Drew said, get exclusive. So you're working exclusive on that role. Get retainers, so you get paid a percentage of the fee up front. I was talking to a guy the other day. He now asks for 50% of the fee up front. Some people will. So why not ask for it? But the key to that, when you're going to ask for that, as with any sort of negotiation, you've got to communicate the benefit to the client in doing that. And if you haven't got a benefit to the client in doing that, you're going to have trouble doing it. But you need to be aware that some of your competitors are able to communicate the benefit of working exclusive with a hiring manager or on a retained basis. And that's something else that you really need to master, the benefit to the client, because you can get people to do things if you can communicate the benefit to them.
Yeah, Terry, just to add before we move on, I think as well, when you look at the conversion rates in your business, and you know, we talked about people feeling like they have to reduce their fee or you know, I guess sacrifice their terms, sacrificing their terms. A lot of that comes down to point one, which is more conversations. I think when you're not creating enough of those opportunities, and every time you're speaking to a hiring manager, you're pitching to a hiring manager, you know, you almost feel like, you know, I don't know where my next piece of business is coming from. So, you know, each meeting then becomes even more important to you in your head anyway. So then you're feeling like, well, I need to, you know, and we've all been there where we're selling to a prospect and we're you know, we feel desperate for whatever reason. Maybe it's been a while since you made a sale. Maybe you know, you just need the revenue in, or you feel like you need the revenue in. So you when you feel like that, you're not in a good position to negotiate, just mindset wise. So I think again, creating more conversations, more opportunities gives you that. You know, if you go into a sales meeting, know that, you know, later on in that day, that week, you've got multiple other sales meetings coming up, and you just know that, you know, I just need to convert one or two of them to hit my revenue goals, rather than, you know, I've only got two and I need to convert these two to hit my revenue goals. It puts you in a lot better position from a negotiation standpoint, and you can, you know, you're less desperate for the business. So if the terms aren't good for you, if the fee isn't good for you, you can walk away knowing that, you know, next call is going to be okay.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, and you know, here's a question to ask yourself: how many times have you said no to a client? I'm not going to work I'm not going to work on those terms. There's some recruiters that we talk to, and they say we never say no. And you want to think about that, because you can't be all things to all people. Not all clients are created equal. And you know that some clients are going to want the lowest fee and going to be really lousy clients. You know that other clients are going to be a joy to work with, and are willing to pay you what you deserve. So there should be times when you're walking away from business if it's not on a win-win situation. And as Drew rightly said, if you haven't got an abundance of leads out there, that's where it creates a discomfort, and that's where it creates that the client says jump and you're saying how high, because you feel that you've got to do just that. It's a really good point, actually. Yeah, really good point. The next one is what we call reducing the delivery or streamlining your delivery. I was talking to somebody the other day, and he's the model that he works on. He's got recruiters that win business. He's got people that deliver on it. But he said something that was kind of a bit disturbing. He's got 2 resources for every consultant in the business. Now, if you look at the costs that he's incurring, he really does need to look at that, because the more it costs you, the more labor you've got to go into to fill in the role, the more it's costing, the less time they've got to focus on other areas of the business. Another reason, by the way, why exclusive retainers are so important, because this guy's doing it because he works on contingency, and he says he feels he has to do it that way to get an edge on his competitors and more likely to fill the roles. By the way, his numbers didn't support that. You know, if you're a recruiter and you're working with 4 other recruiters on every role that you work on, the best you can hope for is 25% success rate, because it's, you know, it's a lottery. It's, you know, sometimes your competitors are going to beat you. So actually, him having 2 resources for every consultant he's got in the business probably isn't a good model. And his numbers don't add up, by the way, Drew. In terms of his sales and his profit, he's not making the profit he should be making, but his cost of delivery are way too high and his fees are way too low. Sometimes when we look to his numbers in terms of his, by the way, here's a number you should know: what does it cost you per placement? How much did it cost you to make a placement? Because in some cases he was making placements, he was making them at a loss. Again, it's another number that many recruiters have no idea on. So accepting fees and doing a delivery on those fees, and it's going to cost them more they're going to lose money on that actual delivery because they don't know what their cost per placement is in their business. Does that make sense, Drew?
It does. It, like, I've had numerous conversations with people, you know, who reach out to us to help with their, you know, the marketing and their sales, and you sort of go back over the past sales and clients that they're working with, and some of the fees that they've accepted, that, you know, that are extremely low, and sort of a common attitude that I hear is, oh well, you know, some business better than no business. It's better to get something than it is to get nothing. And you know, it's half right in a sense, because, you know, I can understand what they mean when they say that, but that's not really, you know, two things. One, there's an abundance of business out there. So the choice isn't ever, you know, this bad piece of business or nothing. It's this bad piece of business or a better piece of business, right? Especially if you've got your marketing and sales right. You can always go out and find another client. So there's no real reason to work with a client who doesn't value you, doesn't respect you. And again, I know we've all been there. We've all worked with clients who, you know, perhaps don't treat us with the respect that we deserve. But there's no, you know, there's no reason we have to settle for that. There's always more business out there. So there's that, and there's also, like, you know, like you mentioned, I think when you're not, you don't have an accurate grasp on the cost of delivery, financially, time-wise, you can sometimes take on assignments that are not profitable for you. And it you know, would have made more sense to just, you know, leave that assignment, give it to someone else, let one of your competitors have it, not work on it, and spend the time that you would have spent working on it to go out and find a new and better piece of business. But I think, you know, sometimes you don't really pay attention to those numbers, or people don't pay attention to those numbers. Also, I think as well, and again, we speak about this a lot, I think especially on contingency models, more and more what we're seeing is, because the industry is getting really competitive, more and more recruiters are entering the market offering a contingency model. So where, you know, 10, 20 years ago, if you were doing contingency, you didn't really need to worry about exclusivity, because it was just you working on the role, or maybe you and one other recruiter. Now it's a case of, you know, we're looking at 5 to 10, you know, it could be numerous recruiters working on the same role. So we're seeing fill rates drop dramatically. So whereas before you may be looking at, you know, I need to win, for every sort of 10 job roles I win, I fill 8 of them, and those numbers are sort of okay. We're looking at 10 to fill 2. And sometimes people aren't even aware of what their fill rates are. So they're working on 10 job orders just to fill 2. Whereas if they fix the way that they were selling their services, got it on exclusive terms or retained terms even better, and they just have to work 2 to fill 2. Again, significantly less work for the same revenue, which means that they can, you know, all that time that they've got back, all that time that they've gained, they can put on other areas of their business. And also, it just means that the time that you spend on every vacancy is more profitable. Terry, does that make sense?
Yeah, and it come back to what we said at the very beginning. You're in business to make as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. So you're in business to make a profit. That's what you're in business for. So that theory, well, having some money is better than no money. Well, if you're making a loss on that delivery, you didn't set up in business to do work and actually make a loss on it. So you you do need to be aware of that, and that's why it comes. I keep coming back, repeating ourselves, but it's imperative that you know your numbers. If you know your numbers, if you know your numbers, you can manage things. If you know your numbers, you know exactly what you need to do to grow your business and by how much you need to grow the business. If you know all your numbers, you could literally sit down and go, right, this is exactly what we need to do to increase our sales by 50% over the next 12 months. And one of the ways you can increase your sales is with what we call repeat business or multiple placements. Here's what we know: winning new clients in of itself, it can be hard work. And as a saying, you have to kiss a lot of frogs to win new business. What we also know is there's 4 key reasons why a client won't buy from you. They don't know you, they don't like you, they don't trust you, and they don't have a need. However, clients that have worked with you in the past, they know you, they like you, and they trust you. And if they have a need, they're the ones you should be talking to, because it is so much easier. And many recruiters, what they do on this is they leave it to chance. Oh, I've got a great relationship with that hiring manager, and whenever she needs me, I know she'll give me a call. Yeah, right. If I had a pound for every time a recruiter's told me that, I had to find out sometime later that same hiring manager was working with somebody else. And the reason being that Drew, is that they left it to chance. They didn't have a systemized process in place whereby they would reach out to all clients who'd worked with them in the past. My story, many years I've shared with you before, Drew. I had a great plumber. He was a fantastic plumber, very reliable. He'd come round to do anything to do with plumbing. He was there almost at the click of a finger, and he'd be around, and he always do a good job. About 4 years ago, the boiler packed up. I went to call him, and he changed his mobile number, and I just had no way of getting hold of him. I knew his first name was Nick, and all I had was his mobile number. When you called that number, it just came as unobtainable. So we called somebody else in, and let's be clear, the person we called in to fix the boiler, they did a great job. But what this second plumber did is he left a sticker on the boiler. Who do you think I'm going to call next time? Because he had his sticker on the boiler, had his name, address, name of the company, and everything. And you want to have the equivalent sticker on your client's boiler. So when they need what you do, either you're talking to them anyway, or they reach out to you straight away. But look at it from the hiring manager's point of view. It's estimated the average hiring manager gets between 4 and 10 cold calls a day from recruiters. Think about it for a minute. If they're getting 10 calls a day, that's 200 cold calls a month. And you honestly think, well, when they want their recruitment, they're going to come to me. If I've had 200 cold calls from other recruiters, all promising very much the same thing. So it's one of those things, don't leave it chance. You've got to have a system and the process in place that when you do that, when you work with those clients, you've got the process in place that you're reaching out to them on a regular basis, or you've got some process in place where they will call you rather than just fingers crossed they give you a call the next time they have a need. Does that make sense, Drew?
Yeah, it does. And you speak about numbers and knowing what the data is in your business. I think, again, another thing that people overlook or don't really pay much attention to is the average lifetime value of each client. So, when you win a client, you probably know what the first placement is worth, but what's the lifetime value over the course of your business, or however long you've been in business? What's the lifetime value of an average client? So one is knowing it, and then what do you have in place to increase that? What do you have in place to increase that? Because I think naturally, if you give a good service, you deliver the outcome that your clients want, you will win repeat business without really even trying. It's bound to happen if you offer a good service. But what would happen if we could increase that by 10%, 20%, 30%? So you're getting even more repeat business. What if you could sort of cement your services as a vital part of the organization of the client? So you're not just recruiting for one hiring manager. Maybe they're introducing to other hiring managers within the organization in different departments, right? So it depends on your business model, of course. But again, this whole thing is about building and installing deliberate systems for this. So I think in your business right now, you will have all the things we talked about at play to some extent. You'll obviously, every month you're having conversations with hiring managers. You're obviously converting a percentage of those conversations into clients. You're obviously trying to fill a vacancy as quickly as possible, ensuring the quality stays there. And you're probably winning repeat business already, right? That's a given. I think even a newer business has that. But what are you doing, deliberately doing, actively doing to increase those numbers? Because I think, we all have those numbers in our business, but if you're not aware of what they are, but two, thinking about, day in, day out, how can I improve that? How can I increase that? What activity can I do? Add what activity can I do optimize to boost those numbers? Then you're not going to achieve the level of growth you want. And yes, you do really well, and you can do really well, but you'll always get to a point where you sort of plateau.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, just what you said there, I thought it was a really good point that perhaps we'll just go into the detail a bit more. Drew talked about the lifetime value of a client, and just to explain what we mean by that, let's say that your average placement is 20,000 of your local currency. So when you do a job when you do some work for your hiring manager, it's worth in invoicing terms 20,000. And let's say in a year they give you fill two job orders with that client. So, and these are all averages. So in a year, on average, they spend 40,000 with you. And let's say that when you get a client, on average, they stay with you for 5 years. What that means is the lifetime value of that one client is 200,000. Just think about that. One client could be worth 200,000. In some cases, a lot more, and of course, in some cases, less as well. And that's the figure that you need to be considering, and that's why it's worth putting in that effort. If one client's worth you 200,000 over 5 or 10 years or 3 years, it doesn't matter what the period is. That's what you need to be thinking about, and that's why it's worth putting in the time and effort to get that client if you're going to get that kind of return over the lifetime of that relationship. And it's one of the reasons, by the way, just as an aside, why people sometimes say, I'm not sure why supermarkets spend all that money on adverts or whatever. And I only spend 100 of my local currency with them each month. Well, again, think about whatever supermarket you go to and how much you spend there each month and how many years you've been going there. They've factored all that in. And now they're looking at hundreds of thousands that each, the average lifetime value of client that they get. But again, the supermarkets will know their numbers. What's your average lifetime value of a client when you get a client? And what would it mean to you if you knew those numbers as well?
Yeah, awesome. Again, is this making sense? Just let us know in the comments. Is this making sense? If you find this useful, give us a shout, give us a wave in the comments. Just to recap, what we've talked about. One is more conversations, increasing the number of conversations you're having with decision makers in your market, hiring managers in your market. Number two, increasing the conversion rate of those conversations. So for every 10 conversations you have, how many of those are you able to convert into new business? Obviously increasing that would help you achieve faster growth. Three, you want to reduce the delivery labor, what we call streamlined delivery. The quicker you can fill, the quicker and less labor intensive each assignment you win is to fill, the more revenue you will make, the more you've got time, energy, space to focus on other areas of your business. And then lastly is what we call multiplier placements. What are you doing to actively increase the lifetime value of each client, actively increase the number of placements you make with each client that you onboard?
Fantastic. Look, we put these trainings on to help you. Our role is to help you generate more leads, make more placements, and earn more money. So every week we put on some free training to help you do just that. Obviously, there's no cost for you attending, and there's no obligation. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your colleagues in the industry and get them to come across and join us. It's every Wednesday rather at 1500 UK time, which is 10 a.m. New York time, I believe, Drew. Yeah, 5 hours. Yeah. So yeah, please, if you've enjoyed it, share it with your friends and get them to come and join us. But every week, every week, we're going to share with you something that will help you generate more leads, make more placements, and increase your personal earnings. So until next week, folks, thank you very much for joining us. Until next time, folks. Drew, thank you very much. Take care, take action, and be relentless. Cheers, folks.